I'm Jennifer Opalia together with Winjam Antigue, Shani Bordo, and Roslyn Dinobo. And today we're going to discuss about the context and content analysis on President Corazon Aquino's speech during the joint session of the U.S. Congress in 1986. Okay, so let's start with the author's background. So, who is Cory or Corazon Aquino? So, Cory Aquino was born as Maria Corazon Sumulong Coangco on January 25, 1933 in Tarlac Province, so the north of Manila. So she belonged to a wealthy and politically prominent family. So in 1954, she graduated from Mount St. Vincent College in New York City with a bachelor degree in French and mathematics. So in 1955, she abandoned her further studies to marry Benigno Simeon Aquino Jr. That's why she became Corazon Aquino, who was then a promising politician. Then she was a loving mother to her 5 children. She has 4 daughters and 1 son. Later on, her husband became a prominent oppositionist of Ferdinand Marcos, and hence he was jailed for 8 years. And so in February 1986, when Ferdinand Marcos called for presidential elections, Cory Aquino runs for the oppositionist presidential candidate. Cory Aquino was a Filipino politician who was serves as the 11th president of the Philippines, so becoming the first woman to hold the office. She was the most prominent revolution figure of the 1986, so 20-year rule of ended President Ferdinand E. Marcos. Due to this, she was widely accredited as the mother of the Asian democracy. She was also named as Time Magazine's Woman of the Year in 1986. So, her presidential term lasted for 6 years, starting from February 25, 1986 until June 30, 1992. On August 1, 2009, at the age of 76, she died as she was diagnosed with a colon cancer in the year 2008. So after her death, monuments of her peace and democracy in the capital of Manila and her province of Tarlac were established. So second is the historical background of documents. So Corazon's husband Ninoy Aquino had become an outspoken regime and critic of Ferdinand Marcos, expected to win in Marcos' 1973 presidential elections. So since Marcos was term limited and could not run according to the Constitution, however, Marcos declared martial law on September 21, 1972 and abolished the Constitution, refusing to relinquish power. So hence, Ninoy was jailed by Marcos for 8 years. And Corazon accompanied him into the exiles in the U.S. states in 1980. So when Marcos called for the presidential elections on February 1986, Corazon ran for the opposition presidential candidate with Salvador Laurel as her running mate for vice president. Corazon was officially reported to have lost the election to Marcos. So Corazon and her supporters challenged the results, charging widespread voting fraud. So this led to the People Power Revolution that ousted Marcos and secured Corazon's seat as the president on February 25, 1986. 7 months after the assuming presidency, Corazon Aquino visited America as she gave a speech before the Joint Congress of the United States Congress in September 1986. In her speech, he sought in addressing the $26 billion of foreign debt and a communist insurgency that grew from 500 guerrillas to 16,000 during the Marcos regime. So moreover, she called on America to help the Philippines in preserving freedom, which the Filipinos have won for themselves. Her speech was penned by her speechwriter Tiri Locsin Jr., and which she delivered in Washington, D.C. on September 18, 1986. And she managed to influence the vote to favor the $200 million financial aid towards rebuilding the Philippine economy.
Okay, for the content analysis, understanding the historical information references, identify and describe the content of the primary source, the poster boy for anti-Marcos movement to her husband, former Senator Ninoy Aquino, whom the Filipino nation had assigned as in the first part of her speech. She acknowledged the speaker, Senator Termon, and a distinguished member of Congress. She reiterated her grief when she left America to bury her husband 3 years before her presidency. She said that she had returned as the president of free people. She detailed about her husband's struggles, how it affected her family, and its impact to the nation. She talked the first time she lost her husband 14 years ago after Marcos implemented a martial law that suspended the Constitution and shut down the Congress, and how Marcos detained Benigno and thousands of others who had spoken for the democracy. She also elaborated how painful it was for her and her children to permanently lose their foundation of their home, her husband, and the father of her children. However, Ninoy Aquino's death was the Philippines' resurrection and the courage and faith by which alone its people could be free again. She quoted Archibald MacLeish, who had said that democracy must be defended by arms when it's attacked by arms, and with the truth when it's attacked by lies, after which she spoke in how he failed to say how it shall be won. Still we fight for honor, and if we fight only for honor, we shall pay. She emphasizes that the fight they started was not wasted, and it was not nonsense won. That day, the Filipinos put up a good fight against the administration. Moreover, she included in her speech the happenings during the presidential election on 1986, how the Filipinos united to go against the Marcos regime that had burdened them for more than 1 decade. It was a declaration that the country and its people finally gained freedom. The task had fallen on my shoulder to continue offering the democratic alternative to our people. She took the responsibilities in taking care and fighting the sake for the freedom of the whole country. However, shortly after being victorious the dictatorship of Marcos, the Philippines was still reckoning with everything his administration had inflicted. That includes $26 billion in total foreign debt and communist insurgency that grew. Throughout the Marcos era, from 500 armed guerrillas to 16,000, the country was just at the start of long road recovery. Hence, by detailing the state of the country to the Congress, her speech also lodged and appealing for help or for financial assistance in restoring full constitutional government and for recovering the economy of the country. For the contextual analysis, the speech of Corazon Aquino was influenced by the situation of the country after the Marcos administration. The country was left in an oppressed situation for over more than 1 decade. This caused the Filipino citizens to be left and be burdened with the debt committed by the Marcos during his regime, which they did not receive any benefit from it. The dust after the martial law was only starting to settle, but the Philippines was reckoning with everything Marcos administration had been inflicted. That includes $26 billion in total foreign debt and a communist insurgency that grew throughout the Marcos era from 500 armed guerrillas to 16,000. The Philippines had no enough means to compensate for the debt. Hence, Corazon filed an appeal for the financial aid from the United States Congress. Moreover, since the Filipino people had really fought hard against the administration to free the country and as well as themselves. Corazon wanted to preserve the freedom that the Filipinos want for themselves. Therefore, in her speech, she also expressed her plea to aid the Philippines in financial and its road for the constitutional and economic recovery. She delivered a historic speech that managed to sway in our favor the vote for emergency for the amount of $200 million aid appropriation.
So, to proceed, what is the relevance or contribution of documents in our country to restore the democracy of the Philippines history? Marcos government outlawed these documents allow the Filipino people to know and to not forget the heart of reality. During the dictatorship of Marcos, lastly, since Corazon Aquino was the first female president of our country, her speech had a strong impact not just in the country, but also on the world participation of women in power. So, what is the author main argument? The author main argument focused on the constitutional and economic recovery of the country after the dictatorship of Marcos. Corazon Aquino wanted to seek financial assistance from the American to help the country recover. Moreover, Corazon's speech was also to officially declare and mark the freedom of the Filipino people and to express how the Filipino citizens united to take back the democracy that was taken away from them during Marcos' era.
So the next is the overall observation, Corazon Aquino's speech. The speech centers on the miserable experiences of the Aquino family, how the family mourns about their loss, and how the government treated their family. She did not state the positive contributions of the Marcos administration and only focused on the negative of his term. Next, Corazon Aquino's speech was based on her insights on the primary experiences before and after the death of her source husband, Ninoy Aquino. Also, it was based on the fact that as a Filipino, she also felt devastated about the situation of the country for experiencing more than a decade of social and political oppression. As she took presidency, she had strongly impacted her nation as well as the world to view women as someone capable of handling authority and power. So with this, she has been described as both a mother of Philippine democracy and as the housewife who led a revolution. I have observed that what had happened in the past, the America helping the Philippines was somewhat a give and take relationship. It seemed like Cory Aquino really trusted the America out of all countries worldwide. That's why she lodged an appeal for help from the U.S. Congress and the recovery and the preservation subsequently of this the Philippine favor from democracy.
That would be all. Thank you.